Um, okay, first up, we're all in virtual reality anyway. None of us is perceiving the actual real world, right? We aren't capable of it. The
Yeah.
brain doesn't work like that. So we're all in our own virtual reality versions of the world. We can only perceive the world as our brain has learned to perceive it, and that will be based on not only the limitations of the hardware, um,
Hmm.
um, which is a fascinating topic. And if you want to look into that, I recommend the book. Crap, what's it called? Just reminded me of it. And the user illusion is another book similar. User illusion will do actually for my recommendation. It was the one I was thinking of, but it will do. Um,
Hmm.
um, we're not only limited by the hardware in our brains, but we are also limited by our experiences. We can only perceive what we have learned to perceive. Uh,
Hmm.
so I don't think there is an argument for objective reality on that basis. But if we were to ask, is there an argument for the reality that we each experience outside of tech? Then yes. And I guess everything I just said there, that the intersection needs to be that whatever we're doing in the metaverse or in the apps whatever we're doing online, if that stuff can improve the life that we have when we're no longer online, um, then that is a good thing. It's serving its function. I don't think we're ever going to be able to achieve. I'm not sure if I believe myself when I say this. I was going to say, I don't think we're ever going to be able to achieve true connection to the level of human to human connection online. But actually, I think we probably can, but it will be different. It will still be a different kind of connection. It's really the voice in the game is just an algorithm. Of course, it's a script. It's not there, but people frequently report that they can't shake the feeling that they're developing a real friendship. And even with AI apps that I was talking about earlier on, and sort of slightly slating in terms of the connection, that one of those apps, I think it's Wobot, has measured the therapeutic alliance, which is there's a scientific measure for therapeutic alliance. It's normally looked at between the therapist and the client, and it tells you, what level of empathy and rapport that those two people have. Wobot have used it for the little robot, animated robot that uses AI to talk to you, and found a significant level of therapeutic alliance with that AI, with that extremely basic AI thing. So maybe we can get to the point where we can have real meaningful relationships with something that is not of flesh. Maybe we can, but I don't think we're there yet. So I think the real world has to be the quote unquote real world has to be paramount. But only in terms of, I don't care how much time we spend in each of them, just as long as the two worlds benefit each other, then we're going to be okay. That's, I think, what I'm getting at. I'm not sure if I've answered your question at all.
No, I mean, I think this is good. I mean, I think this is, as I was saying before I hit record, the answers are always quite different. And we've had maybe one or two guests who had like a pretty strong stance, but it's one of these things where kind of the more I've thought about this myself, it seems like sort of an absurd question, but I also think it's quite salient because that is the direction that we're going. And you do have people, even 20 years ago on like Second Life, right? Who that was sort of the primary focus of their attention. And in many ways, it's like, yeah, a lot of people who are working, they live in the Slack metaverse or the Outlook metaverse or whatever it is. It's like we've sort of already found ourselves there in some capacity. And I do wonder about there's one particular news story. I think it's maybe 3 or 4 weeks old at this point. But did you hear about the Google engineer who either left or was put on administrative leave or something like that because he was ringing the alarm bells about how the AI that they created, he thought it was sentient?
It's not those two AIs that were talking to each other in a language that the humans didn't understand, so shut them down. That was a while ago. No, I don't know what
No.
I've not come across that. Don't know how I've missed it.
Yeah, I'll have to send it to you. I mean, it was pretty incredible because I saw. So the name of the AI, it's a product that Google's been working on called LaMDA, LaMDA. And this gentleman, I think his role was like AI ethicist or something like that. He had a really colorful background. But he was particularly, I think, tasked with identifying bias in AI. And he was asking all these questions about, like, I think religion in particular. And so he leaked a transcript after, I think, his telling was like he tried to essentially escalate that there was some issue with, he thought it was like sentient, he thought it was like conscious, that this was like a living or a conscious being in some capacity. And his superiors, I guess, didn't act on it or something. And so he leaked the transcript because he thought that this needed to get out. And I remember seeing initially a bunch of commentary about this on Twitter and figured, oh, it's this kind of like silly news story or something that grabs your attention. But then I actually looked at the transcript that he put out, and it was like, oh no, this has arrived, right? And it's a little bit scary to think about because, on one hand, I think there is this extremely optimistic. Well, first of all, there's a question of whether or not it's alive.
Yeah.
Or whether or not it's sentient, which that's way above my pay grade. I don't even know where to begin with that, right? But what's kind of more interesting is that if this gentleman was willing to put his, career or livelihood or whatever at risk because he was so persuaded by this technology that it actually did necessitate some kind of action, then, there's the upside of that, which is kind of like you were describing, where this could be something that is useful as a tool that's very kind of human centric and allows people to, accomplish their goals and do some of the things you're doing with Betwixt. But if you think about it being used by a third party to persuade somebody to do something that's not necessarily aligned with their own interests, it's a little scary to think about.
Sure, but that you don't need AI to do that. I mean,
True.
that's going to happen anyway. That is happening anyway, and that's happening in awful, awful ways already. And that's another thing, the question of whether or not we need to really police tech usage. And definitely, online games where players talk to each other. And there are some horrifying stories, especially with the young boys being taken in and sort of groomed essentially by older men who want to convert them over to often sort of very anti-feminist or anti-female religion. I'm sure there's plenty of other types of ideas, but the ones I've read about are men sort of coercing young boys to go out and do really awful things to people, and that's often taken place on multiplayer gaming platforms because it can do. So that's, you don't, like I said, you don't need AI for that.
Right.
Happen anyway. And I think another thing that came to mind when you were talking then about the question about the reality thing, if you had asked, is the metaverse and is a digital reality ever going to be as much a reality as the real world? I think my answer would definitely be yes. And I think that this is a thing that especially people of my generation and older who have lived before the internet need to understand, and often we don't understand, is that people who have grown up with the internet and who've grown up with online communities, to those people, the game that they're playing, or the thing that they're building online, or like you said, their Slack metaverse or whatever, is definitely as real, if not sometimes more real, than the conversation around the dinner table they're going to have with their parents later. And that has to be respected. Or we are not going to be able to meet them where they are, which is, of course, exactly what your company is doing so well. We have to respect that already the metaverse, as it is now, and increasingly it will be, is as real to the people who play it as not. That's also why NFTs, I think, are unavoidable and important. And I remember one person asking me when I talked about getting into this, of course, we met lots of resistance with it, because there is a dark side to NFTs.